Welcome to episode 7 of the Principal at Home channel. Excited today about the guest that we have to talk through our leadership principles. There's a lot we're going to be able to take away from today's conversation. So today we are going to have the pleasure of hearing and talking with Richard Hendrix. And before we get started with our special guest, so Richard attended Athens High School, where he was a standout student and basketball player. As a high school player, he was McDonald's All-American, Parade All-American, Gatorade Player of the Year, and Alabama's Mr. Basketball. He helped Athens to 2 Final Four appearances in the state tournament. He finished high school in the state's all-time leading rebounder and shot blocker. Graduating high school in 2005, he went on to sign a basketball scholarship with the University of Alabama. And at that time, he was the highest-rated recruit to ever sign with the university. In college, Richard was named to the All-Freshman team, All-SEC team twice, AP All-American team honorable mention, and in his final year, he averaged just under 18 points and 10 rebounds per game to lead the SEC in double-doubles. He was drafted by the Golden State Warriors, and as the 49th overall pick in the 2008 draft, he led the NBA D-League in rebounds and double-doubles and was named to the NBA D-League All-Star team. He went on to have a standout career in the EuroLeague and Euro Cup, where he played for 13 years for 8 different countries. In 2013, he was named the Euro Cup Finals MVP and won the league championship. He retired professionally in 2021, and since his retirement, he has been named to the Limestone County Hall of Fame and the SEC Legend for the University of Alabama. And currently, Richard serves as a broadcast analyst for ESPN, SEC Network, and the Crimson Tide Sports Network. He is married with 3 children, and they currently live in the Nashville area. So we want to welcome Richard to our podcast today. Richard, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for that wonderful introduction. Absolutely,
man. It's been a while since we talked and got together, but I'm so glad we're able to talk about leadership, because just looking back on our high school career, it's been quite a while since we were in high school together. But man, we thought highly of you as a leader when we only played together for 1 year, but that 1 year I thought a lot of you, even though you were a freshman and I was a senior.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It definitely is a full circle moment. I mean, to go back all the way to can't believe that it's been almost 25 years since we started playing varsity basketball at Athens High School. And, even to this day, all of my travels, all of the teams I've been on, those memories that I have at Athens High School on all of those teams were some really, really fun times that are at the top of the list when it comes to ranking the memories I have around the game.
So, for me, Lead Full Circle is all about leadership, just at work, at home, with our family, just goes full circle in life. That's kind of what I want to talk today about, and just ask a lot of questions. And because I know you'll have great input for us, for myself, and all of our guests. So I want to kind of go back to our high school days, the good old glory days of Athens High School. Think about the season we got to play together. You were the youngest, probably the youngest on our varsity team. So what do you remember most about that year and about kind of being the youngest guy in the locker room?
Well, it was an interesting year for me. I was coming off of being a multi-sport athlete, football, baseball, and basketball. And I got injured before playing AAU basketball in the spring of my 8th grade year. And I did not go out for freshman football because the injury wasn't going to be healed in time. So it was a little bit surprising that I was cleared to play sports around basketball season. And I didn't know if I was going to be on varsity, didn't really know. I'd played the year before a little bit on the freshman and JV team as I played up in the 8th grade. But from day one, Coach Jimmy Drake was our head coach, and he said I was going to be a starter on the team from the very beginning. And, growing up in Athens, my dad was a coach. I'd been to games my entire life. He eventually was the head coach that I played for. And I always wanted to play on the varsity level. But to finally get a chance to do that at 15 years old, it was a little bit of a shock because the guys on the team were so much older. But I seemed to fit in pretty quickly, and everybody embraced me.
As I was a senior and you were a freshman, just thinking back to that, man, we knew who our best player was. And I think that's one reason our team was fairly successful, because I didn't feel like we had a bunch of egos on the team. We knew who the ball had to go through, and it was Richard Hendrix.
Well, it's funny because we had such a talented team that I actually thought was a team that could have competed for a state championship. We had top-level guards who were really good, could get in the end on the court and score, and we had shooting on the outside. But it kind of shifted. In the beginning of the season, I think that I was just more of an offensive rebounder. But as the season moved on, I did start to notice that you guys started to look for me a lot more to start the game off and to set a tone down low. And the season continued to go. And I actually grew during that season and got a lot more confident. So the leadership role was something that just kind of slid over to me all the way into the end of that season. It wasn't something that I necessarily asked for, but I guess my work ethic and what I was able to do in producing on the team was enough for my teammates to think highly of me and to entrust me in that leadership role.
Talking about leadership in a little bit more detail, with being that young in high school and being a freshman starting on varsity, looking back at that time when you were that young, what did you most appreciate in the high school level about older leaders on the team?
Well, it was different. It was one of those things where coming from middle school, it's a different conversation in the locker room than what you're hearing from guys on the team who are 18 years old. But at the same time, if you go back 25 years, as it was in Athens, sports was what the school revolved around, and everyone in the town supported Athens high school athletics and the basketball team. And several of our players on the team were football players. And what I was able to take from them, that there was a tremendous amount of pride that you had to have when you were wearing the black and gold. We didn't lose too many home games, and that was just something that was always stressed. And I was early on, I was able to see the level of importance that it meant to not just myself, but the teammates and then everyone else in the community as well. And I learned that from the older guys in the locker room.
And kind of tying into that, where you kind of realized that it was important to everybody there in the locker room. Was there a moment that really you can think back just to being in high school in general when you realized you had to really start taking over as a leader?
I can tell you this, and you might remember this game, Graham. We were playing in the middle of the season, and I was starting to hit my stride. I tell you, I started the season, and I was a little bit out of shape because I had not really had an off season. But in the middle of the season, I hit my stride. I was starting to become a little bit more of a leader on the team. We had a really good guard, Tavares Timmons. People might remember from Athens.
Oh, I remember.
Yeah. He was electric. We had Tavares Timmons and Tank Beavers and so many guys. I could name the whole roster. But we were playing on the road at Austin High School. And Austin had a really good player, good athlete. Jawan Garth was his name. He actually went to Alabama as Jawan Simpson. And he was about 6'4", 225 pounds, went to Alabama and played linebacker and played in the NFL. And he was a tremendous player. And I was having a good game against him. And he was one of the top players in the 6A division, ended up being up for one of the 6A Player of the Year awards in the state. But the game was close. We come down to the final moment. I think we're down by 1. And Tavares, who's one of our leading scorers and has the ball in his hand oftentimes, it's 10 seconds to go in the game. He drives over, and I'm in the corner. And when he looks to me, I cut towards the basket, and the ball tips off my hands, and it goes out of bounds, and I turn it over, and we lose the game. And I just remember feeling so bad that I lost the game. And I can never forget walking to the locker room. It was someone in the stands at Austin High School looked over and said, "You got to shoot them, big fella." I'll never forget it.
Yeah.
But the feeling that I had in the moment that our seniors were actually looking to give me the ball in the clutch to win the game. It was something that it turned a switch on for me to realize I have to deliver. And moving forward in the rest of the season, from that point on, I realized I needed to be a much bigger force and try to close games out for the team.
I think we all have those defining moments where it kind of clicks for us. And that's a neat story to hear from you when you talk about that. Now, I kind of want to transition to start looking at our college and your pro leadership time and some leadership tips and just some advice you may have for us. So one thing I've always thought about is, when you were at Athens and you graduate from Athens High School, you're the man. I mean, you're dominating high school basketball in the state of Alabama. So you went from being the man in high school to just one of a lot of really good players at Alabama. So I'm curious on how did that challenge you as a leader?
Well, it was a difficult transition for me, to be honest. When you come from a small town where everyone in the community is pulling for the better of the team and the better of the program and the pride of the city, you naturally just take for granted that everyone is going to be playing for the name on the front of the jersey rather than one on the back. And I assumed when I first got to the University of Alabama that it was going to be just like it was in high school. We had good teams. We went to the state championship game, went to the Final Four twice, the deepest finish that Athens high school basketball has ever had. And I had that same type of attitude. We don't lose at home. You play as hard as you can. You're playing for the name on the front of your jersey, not the one on the back. And you kind of find out that when you're in a locker room of guys who are just as talented, if not more talented, and it's more of them, you don't have that same situation where I had in high school where you have other guys on the roster relinquish some of that leadership role just because they can recognize your skill set and your attitude. There's different agendas on the roster. Guys are playing for different things, obviously, and they don't always align with what you have. So it was an adjustment for me when I first joined the team in Alabama. And unfortunately, we didn't have the success that I would have liked to have over my 3 years there. But there was something that I learned from. I learned that you're not always going to deal in an environment where everyone is like-minded and comes from the same background and has the same goals. And if that's the case, you're going to have to make adjustments to be effective when it comes to leadership.
As you move through college, you get an MBA, you go overseas, you have an unbelievable career overseas. What's just thinking back to when you were 18 and then and thinking about where you went in your pro career and how much growth you had as a person. What do you think one leadership lesson would be that you learned in your pro career that you wish you would have known when you were young at like 18 years old?
Well, the biggest thing that I would say is that being prepared in the beginning is everything. Never think that you have all the answers. And a lot of times when you're 18 years old or 21 years old, when you get out of college, you think you know everything. But being prepared from the first day and first impressions is probably the biggest piece of advice that I'd have for anyone.
I'm so glad you said that.
When it comes into anything that you're doing, leadership, or even if you're going to just embark on a new opportunity, you never get a second chance to make a first impression, and you want to be prepared for the moment. As you mentioned, I was drafted by the Golden State Warriors, and I was a second round draft pick in a loaded draft of 2008. And I made the roster, signed a multi-year contract, but was only on the team for about 6 months. And I sat on the inactive where I was on the bench and never got a chance to play. And a lot of that had to do with I came in with an injury that I pulled a muscle in a workout before the season started. So I wasn't able to show who the real Richard Hendrix was in training camp. And by the time I started to show who I was, the first impression was over. So oftentimes, even in sports and a lot of times in life and in leadership, many people will believe that a lot of circumstances are not in your control. But my advice would be is try to figure out everything you possibly can about the venture that you're about to embark on. Study it. Be prepared for all of the pros and cons and everything that can happen, potentially can go well, potentially can go south. And within that, try to prepare yourself to be ready for that, because you never know when your name's going to be called. And it's the same thing. I learned that. Being in good shape, making sure that you are taking care of your body, that you're hydrated, that you're stretching, that you're doing all the little things that no one talks about. Because that one chance that you get where the coach looks down the bench and calls your name to get in might be your one audition. And that's in everything you do. Some people say you got to have your elevator speech. You never know who you're going to bump into in that lobby, in that elevator. And are you ready? Are you presentable? Do you look the part? And do you have everything that you need to give them for that one moment of time that you might have? So being prepared from the very beginning is the biggest thing I take away from my experiences, from my climb in my professions.
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned first impressions. So with our students at school, the first 2 days of school, I meet with every grade level by themselves. And this year, that was one thing I really talked a lot about was first impressions, because no matter what kind of school year that they had last year, It's a brand new start. So that first week of school is their first impression with the teacher, and just to get off. I think you can get off to a great start to set your year up for success in a school. And I think that can tie into anything in life. And one thing I told our students too was about first impressions. Like when I interview a teacher for a job, usually, within the first 5 minutes, if you think that person's going to be a good fit because of that first impression.
Right.
So man, I'm so glad you brought up the first impression. I'm a big believer in making a big time positive impact on that first impression.
Yeah, it's huge. You never get a second chance. And, when you're young, you always think that opportunities are going to come. Your whole life, your parents are going to give you multiple opportunities, your coaches. But when you start to get a little bit older, you might only get one shot. And making those excuses the rest of your life of saying why things didn't work out the way that you wanted them to is the wrong attitude. You have to take some accountability for yourself because you have a little bit more control than you believe.
Yeah. So I kind of want to still stay in kind of the pro time frame we're talking about, but talk about the locker room with a little more detail. So say at some point in your career, you faced maybe a losing streak or two, or you just had tough locker rooms at times for different reasons. How do you stay locked in as a leader? What are some things you did just to continue to stay the course as a leader during those tough, challenging moments?
Well, you have to lean on your preparation. That's the main thing. If you are prepared in the beginning, then you'll be able to weather all of the storms that you're going to have. As a leader, that your teammates or your coworkers are watching you, and it's something that for me has been able to transition over as an analyst with college basketball on ESPN, is that your coworkers are seeing if you're coming into the facility early, if you're prepping well, if you are doing a really good job of understanding the information. It's the same with your teammates on the court. Are you in shape? Do you know the playbook? Are you accountable? Are you available? Are you healthy and taking care of your body and following the proper diet where you can give the team the best version of you? And is your outside life something that they can respect as well? Because people want to see if you are someone, not to necessarily say if there's a transparency to you, but they want to be able to know that there's somebody they feel like they can trust. And even when you have the down moments, if you can stay consistent on who you are, and if that's with a high character, then you'll be just fine. The down moments will be short-lived, and you'll be able to weather those storms.
So we've talked through high school, we've talked through college, we've talked through pro life. I kind of want to start transitioning a little bit to leadership beyond the court. So a couple questions that ties into that. Now that you're and by the way, I love listening to you on the SEC basketball analyst. You do a really good job. I've heard several around North Alabama say, if Richard's calling the game, I want to listen to it. He does a good job.
I appreciate it.
You do awesome.
It's a lot of fun.
But now that you are an analyst and you're around a lot of different players, women and men, do you see leadership differently now looking from the outside in on the analyst side of things?
Oh, most definitely. What it has taught me life after professional basketball is that when you're a basketball player, there are a lot of things that come easy to you. It's a sport. It's a kid's game that everybody wants to play. And a lot of times you're going to be blessed with some ability that others just don't have. And if you're able to take it to the highest level, then, it can be impactful. I mean, when you look at it and say the NBA only has 450 players, and at one point in your life, you were one of the 450 that held a job with a contract. It speaks of all of the levels that you had to, the hurdles and all of the levels you had to get to just to make it to that position. And now when you move forward into this profession, you see that it's like, this is no longer playing. I'm not being 6'8", 250 pounds doesn't really matter when it comes to how good can you articulate the game and relate to the people that are watching. So you have to lean on your preparation. But what it also shows you is that your coworkers and everyone else is a leader within their own way. Mm-hmm. And transitioning from what I've done as a player, the only leadership you saw was who was the best player on the court, who can galvanize his teammates, who's doing things to help his team win. But you find out that there's other ways of winning. and other ways of leading. And there's other routes in which people have in their professions that they can show their abilities. So that's something that for me, as I've transitioned over into this side of things, that I find a lot of respect from a lot of people in different areas of this whole ecosystem of sports and broadcasting and television, and even the production side of things and college athletics, that as a former athlete, you just couldn't see. You live in a bubble in your own world. And it's important to see that so many people can lead in so many different ways.
So, here at Lead Full Circle, I'm all about leadership coming back to home and not being left out of our families, because I'm just being very transparent here. Working in a school, being an administrator, a lot of times our struggles come from broken homes, broken families. And I think a lot of times there's a lot of variables to that, obviously, but I think majority of those issues come from a lack of leadership in the homes. And so that's a big point, big emphasis for me as we talk about Lead Full Circle. So now that we've talked through your career as far as a player and an analyst, I'd really like to talk through kind of your family and your role as a dad, as a husband. One thing I've thought about with playing overseas, you're a long way away from family. And your wife may have been with you. I'm not sure on the details of that, but you're still a long way from your parents, your other family. So what did you learn about keeping your family close, even though you're miles and miles away from them physically?
Well, I've always been a family-oriented guy. My parents were both school teachers. I have two older sisters. We were always doing things together, and probably around Athens High School and Athens High School athletics. So I've always been close-knit. And my wife has played a big role in that as we moved and played in 8 different countries abroad, as she lived with me everywhere. My oldest son was actually born in Spain. So we've been abroad with our children, our dog. Our dog's been to 9 different countries, if I'm not mistaken. Wow. So, we've been everywhere. But I'll tell you this, it doesn't matter where you go. Having that family unit within your own nuclear family is a big thing that helps you. And you got to keep your same values that you had. The same values that I grew up with in Athens, Alabama, and the same that my wife's family grew up with in her hometown. That stuff goes with us everywhere that we go all over the world. So you have to continue to be who you are. Now, I will say this. You find out, and I left for college at 18 years old and was in Tuscaloosa for 3 years. It's only 2 hours away. My rookie year, I'm in Golden State and in Bismarck, North Dakota for the entire year. So that gave me a good little tune-up to have some time away from my parents and my siblings and whatnot. But, I'll tell you a funny story. I found out, I guess, I don't know, not the hard way, but, my first year I was gone in California in North Dakota for the entire year. And it seemed like forever because I didn't go that far away from college. But the season ended in April, and I had been away from home ever since August. So, or maybe around August or September. And I hadn't seen my parents unless I came home for Christmas, because I actually had a little short time in the D-League at that particular time. I came home for a day or two because I was traded on teams. But I just remember all season long, I can't wait to get back home, see my family. It's going to be so good. I miss everybody. They're going to be happy to see me. And I showed back home when the season ended. And that first weekend, I showed up. Everybody was happy to see me. My sister and everybody came in town. My mom cooked a nice meal. It was great. I was so excited to see everybody. And then when Monday, my friends came over from high school or college, came to see me for a little bit. But when Monday came around, now I'm a professional basketball player. It's my off season. 6 a.m. starts, and everybody else is getting over. Actually, Sunday evening, they realize that I got to go to work tomorrow. And I realized pretty quickly that it's like, while I'm sitting around by myself, it's like, hold on, wait a minute. Like, yeah, they're excited to see you, but everybody has a life they have to live too. And they have leadership roles that they have in their occupations, and they got to get back to that. So I learned pretty quickly that it was like, your family loves you, you love them, but you got to get to work, and you got to get to doing what you're doing in your own profession. And there's a time for that, and there's a time for work, and you have to figure out a way to balance it. But that first year was really good to giving me the opportunity to understand how to balance it well. And I was able to do that throughout my entire career. And I took it full advantage of my off seasons with families. And my wife and I and my children, we had a great time when we were abroad. I really enjoyed every moment of it.
Yeah. And man,
I watched every game. I thought about it when I retired in 2021. And even when I was playing abroad for 12 out of my 13 years, my mom, with the time difference, I'm playing in Israel, Italy, Russia, France, Turkey, Japan. Even with the time difference, she would stay up and watch those live streams of those games, or she would at least be following the stat tracker or whatever the case may be. But I've always had the support. Same for my wife. When she wasn't able to be there, she was always staying up watching those games. But I tell you, technology throughout the course of my career changed too. So that made it much easier. When I first started my professional career, you had to have like a calling card with some minutes to call back home from abroad. And then they started with the Skype, which made it a little bit better. And then obviously you had FaceTime at the end of the career, which made it so easy to be in touch with everyone. But just being in touch with people was very difficult. But it's the difficult moments too when you're abroad. I mean, it's not always going to be happy times. You miss some sad times and some important moments with your family. But you just have to always know that even if you are apart, you're still together, and you have to make the most of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So going a little more specific with your family, how did becoming a husband kind of shape your leadership style?
Well, it
in your family,
it shapes it from a standpoint that you have to immediately realize that you have more than just yourself to consider. And, marriage is a great thing. I would tell it for so many young people. I mean, listen, I know it's a tough time now and things have changed and everyone wants to do a lot of things on their own, but I'm just a big believer that you can do the same things with the spouse. And oftentimes when you're embarking on a lot of young kids who are in high school and going to college, I mean, those college years, I met my wife in college, but those are the best opportunities for you to find someone that's going to be on the same page as you and you can grow together. So it was something that I did decide to get married, that you realize you have someone else you have to support. You have someone else's feelings and ideas that you have to consider, and you have to make wise decisions when doing so. That's going to benefit not just you, but everyone, and then your future children. So that's something that when you're working, can you find that balance? Because when you're playing abroad, like I was, your wife doesn't have anyone else to lean on over there. They're over there for you. Now, yes, you are a family, but they don't have the coworkers to go to have a little bit of camaraderie in the locker room. They might have some other wives that they can do some things with. They're in a foreign country. They don't speak the language. So it's important for you to try to make them comfortable so y'all can both have a really enjoyable moment. Now, fortunately for my wife, she was able to find a job where she did do some things and was teaching at an American school in a couple of the places that we were, and, which made it fun. But at the same time, you have to be able to consider others. And I would say for this generation that's coming up, that's a big step that you're going to have to start to understand much earlier, because when you start to have a partner, it's no longer only about you, it's about we, and you have to make those wise decisions in your leadership in that role as a husband.
That's right. Absolutely. So how many kids you've got?
3. I have 3 children. Yeah. They keep me busy. I'm the youth sports coach. Whatever it is, I'm out there. I'm coaching basketball, baseball, soccer.
Hold on. You coach soccer?
I'm out there. What else?
I love it. I love
football, flag football. I'm coaching it all.
Yeah.
I mean,
how old are your kids?
Just let's see. They are 4, 6, and 9. Yeah.
Wow.
So, they definitely keep me busy. A lot of fun.
I don't know if you even know this. Me and Faith are expecting our second child in October.
Congratulations.
Yeah, and I'm 41 years old, fixing to have a second baby. But you know what? You can't question God's timing. So
you're still young. So
I'm gonna do the best I can. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's all we can do. But that's right. Beautiful.
Yeah. So talking about our kids and our children, what's a legacy you hope your kids carry on from you when you look at just your leadership, your values? What do you want your kids to, that legacy they carry on?
Well, I want them to obviously have some type of legacy and understand that, that their dad was always present, that he was there and had a hard work ethic, and also pushes them to be the best that they can be. A lot of times when you are a professional athlete and people know you for your athletic achievements and even to some degree when you're working a job where people will see you in the public eye, your children oftentimes just know you as daddy at home. They don't know you in that space. But at the same time, that for your children, there could be a little bit of pressure on them, particularly athletically, to how they're going to do academically as well. You come from a family of educators. But we always stress to our kids, we want you to do your best. Whatever it is that you're doing, we want you to do your best. Now, your best might not be as good as others, or maybe it can be much better than others. But we only want you to do your best and just know that your parents want the best for you. And with that, you can only hope that will create an environment that will nurture them to be positive, community contributing adults that live a life with really good values and hardworking individuals that people that can respect, and obviously that they can continue to have some type of loyalty to their family.
Last question for our YouTube guest that I want to ask you, because I think if we may have a lot of younger students, maybe younger audience watching. So if you have a younger athlete or just a younger leader in general, just any workplace, it doesn't have to be an athlete or basketball, but what's one piece of advice you'd give them to become a leader others would want to follow?
It's just staying ready would be a big one. It would be a big one that I would say. Stay ready. You never know when opportunity is going to come, and know that someone is watching. I mean, your preparation, how you go about your day, how you carry yourself. There's someone observing. It could be a future employer. It could be a future employee. But you have an opportunity to really set the tone of how you want to be addressed and how you want to be viewed. And it's understanding that and being mindful of what you are and where you are in these spaces will be something I think will help you in any endeavor that you have.
Well, Richard, man, I appreciate you so much joining us today on episode 7 of my new YouTube platform and Lead Full Circle. I do have 2 more questions I want to ask you.
Okay.
But I want to have that time transitioned over to patreon.com/leadfullcircle. So if you're not a part of Patreon, I would encourage you to do that. These next 2 questions are even more detailed, more in-depth about leadership that I think so many could pull from and apply to their lives. So if you've enjoyed today's episode, please go to patreon.com/leadfullcircle to hear these next 2 questions. A really big deal. But again, Richard, thank you so much for joining us today. And this has been episode 7 of the Principal at Home channel.
Thank you. Enjoyed it.